Welcome to Greenhouse Grower to Grower, the podcast where we talk to growers from across the greenhouse industry about market trends, innovation, their biggest challenges and opportunities, and more. I'm Brian Sparks, editor of Greenhouse Grower. The cover story of Greenhouse Grower's November issue provides a closer look at Kind Earth Growers, a wholesale plant nursery in Ottsville, Pennsylvania, that offers more than 215 species of seed-grown native perennials and aquatic plants under 20,000 square feet of controlled environment production. In this episode of Greenhouse Grower to Grower, you can hear my full conversation with Kind Earth owner John Mark Courtney and learn more about how his passion for native plants led to the launch of a new business that has become well known for its focus on quality and education about native plants. Here's our conversation. I guess if we want to start with just some basic information about Kind Earth Growers, how long the company's been around, how big you guys are, your main crop focus, and who your main customer bases are.
Yeah, sure. So Kind Earth was founded in February of 2017. So we're just closing up our seventh year, I guess. Yeah, our seventh year. It was right now we have about just over a half acre of production, indoor and outdoor. All total, it's 20,000 square feet under cover and about 9,000 square feet outside growing space.
Okay.
Roughly 16 full-time equivalent employees in the height of the season. And I would say 6 that I would consider our core leadership management team that kind of run it. Primarily, we only grow seed-grown native perennials and aquatic species. We sell to wholesalers that are doing finishing for IGCs or who are just flipping our flats. We sell directly to contractors, either eco landscapers, because there's a kind of a movement in definitely here in the Northeast for ecologically based landscape design for residential and for commercial. But we also sell to large scale contractors that are doing public works, whether it be state parks or green spaces and things like that, public gardens.
Okay.
And then also just, again, like I said, those regulatory driven stormwater management contractors that are taking care of, stormwater basins, bioswales, parking lots, etc.
Yeah.
So that's really the focus. That would be what we could call our sandbox of people we sell to.
Okay.
And I've been a grower of, I was a grower of aquatic plants for 20 years at a nursery, and I bought the native plant assets of that company and started Kind Earth with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. I guess in the past few years you've seen a lot of companies expanding, and then you've seen some consolidation in other areas. I honestly don't think you really see that many new companies emerging in the market. So it's interesting that you guys, kind of taking that path. So,
Yeah.
And obviously the past few years, there's been no shortage of challenges, I would imagine, that you faced along the way. So it's a great time to launch something new.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's crazy because you figure we didn't really get our feet under us until I would say the spring of 2019.
Okay.
Because in those early years, I still had a full-time job at the nursery that I was working at,
Okay.
as well as our main staff, like our office and inside sales. Sophia was working at that nursery, and so was our head grower. So this was a side project. And for 2 years, side project. And then we got our feet under us in 2019, and then 2020, everything exploded.
Yeah.
It was very, very, it was nervous at first, but once I think folks started spending in horticulture, it really just it grew, and it's been growing at a good clip since.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to ask about that. So, I know there's been some fluctuations in the market coming out of the pandemic. How has that worked out for you guys?
I think as a young company, and as we increase our market share in the area, we're seeing growth year after year. Whether it's anywhere from 10 to 25% growth each year. So we haven't experienced necessarily that like kind of leveling off or stabilizing that I think the rest of the market has seen, especially with IGCs. Like IGCs are, you get a couple bad weekends in the springtime, and then you're going to have some slower sales.
Right.
I think overall the industry is still up above 2019 levels, but for us it's just been consistent, a consistent uptick. And I attribute that to us, again, just being a new company and more people finding out about us, and then also our quality of plants. That's our main goal here.
Yeah.
Highest quality.
Sure. So what exactly is your role then at the company? And then can you talk about the leadership structure that's in place at
Yeah,
Kiney?
so I kind of wear every hat. So I have this one, I have a couple over here. So we're a really tight-knit team. So I mean, structure-wise, I kind of, obviously I own the company, I'm running it, but I also am day to day involved with production planning, actively growing any logistics that are going on with shipping, kind of everything,
Sure.
we're a tight team. For our inside sales office, AR, AP, inventory management with me is Sophia. And then we have Joe and Diane as our growing team. So Joe would be the head grower and Diane's greenhouse manager. And then I have a very small shipping department, which is my wife. and and one of our guys here is named Sam. So that's kind of how we've structured it. We all tend to do everything. We can, at least most of us here can do each other's jobs. Like Sophia can run out, pull a couple plants out of the greenhouse because she has a customer pickup that may have called an hour ago.
Mm,
Joe can cross train. He can pack boxes. He can water plants and do everything. So that's kind of what our mantra is, and that's kind of one of our goals that we're setting forth, is that at least we can all cover each other,
sure.
so that we all have a good handle on the business,
Okay.
just in case one of us isn't here. You know.
Hmm. Okay. So, I mean, you talked about the plants at the beginning of the conversation. I really want to make that one of the main focuses of this
Yeah.
discussion here. So, um, let's talk about, why native plants have become the main focus for your company and kind of how you decided from there, not just to focus on that, but then specifically which crop segments and which varieties, make the most sense for you.
Yeah, fair enough. So native plant, I mean, I quite honestly, for my entire career since college, have been focused on ecological design. And it's was instilled in me in college about designing in plant community, having sense of place, and what does it mean to, region to region, to actually like experience the country by its plant material,
Mm,
right? So, I graduated school in '98, and that was really not kind of hot yet. You know what I mean? We had little niches and little cults, if you will,
yeah,
with native plant groups, and it's really starting to take off. But honestly, if you were to ask me personally, it's a passion, but it's also, I look at native plants as the backbone of ecological resilience, right?
sure.
And with the idea of designing within plant communities, like you take the emphasis off just the one plant. It's not like, oh, I just bought this mum, or I just, got these geraniums, and I'm going to look at this plant all the time. It's more of like looking at plants in context, so it's a broader scope. Um, we, a lot of the things we're growing, since we're based in the
Mm,
Mid-Atlantic Northeast, we do grow a very extensive palette of plants from our Piedmont region. We also kind of play with some of the prairie species that are really hot that are being designed by some of the bigger designers that are kind of well known, like a Pete Udoff, or um, a Pat Kalina, or whoever it might be. So we look to other garden trends in public spaces. The High Line did a tremendous boost for native plants because it brought it to the forefront.
yeah,
And then you have folks like Doug Tallamy from University of Delaware, who is, with Bringing Nature Home and Nature's Last Hope, is really putting out the message that these plants as a community are essential, right? For insect life, for bird life, and all that. So it really becomes more of a purpose-driven idea of what we're doing, and the reason why we're growing these plants,
okay,
as opposed to just like, oh, look at, again, just we take the emphasis off just the plant.
right,
Um, the as far as what we're growing, again, like I said, it's based regionally, but then also there's certain market trends that we're seeing through public gardens and design. And then yeah, just our own interests. I'd like to add new plants, at least one or two each year, just to play with, because we are seed grown. There's different protocols for everything to germinate, and
sure,
it's fun to keep the challenge going. We don't like to be stuck in a rut here, so we're
yeah.
yeah, we're constantly trying out new species, and seeing if we can get that protocol broken and get it into the market and share the information if other people want it.
Okay. You
Mhm.
mentioned just, coming out of college. So where did you go to school, and did you have a degree in horticulture then?
Yeah, I went to Delaware Valley University in
Okay.
Bucks County, And yeah, my degree was ornamental horticulture and environmental design. I had originally intended to follow the landscape architecture path, and that was my goal there.
Mm.
Um, so ironically enough, I had no propagation classes. I didn't even have botany. I was it was geology, soils, climatology, plant communities, ecology. And so that was my background. And then during a summer internship at a local wildflower preserve, I found myself in the greenhouse area in the
Okay.
production of these, mostly spring ephemerals. So,
Yeah.
we were growing trilliums and spring beauties, and it just piqued my attention. It really just grabbed me.
Oh,
And
nice.
so that's, I went back for my senior year, finished my design degree, and I could not stop thinking about growing. So my first job out of school was I'm gonna be a grower somewhere, or at least learn how to be a grower.
Yeah.
I was given that opportunity. So
Okay.
yeah.
So I know that, I mean, you're in a segment of the market that is constantly evolving. So I do wonder, when it comes to, keeping both yourself and then your team updated, both with, new production trends, but then also kind of where the consumer is at right now, where they're going to be. How do you kind of keep up with that information?
Yeah, sure. So we do attend all the trade shows, the ones that make sense here. So Cultivate's a huge one,
Mhm.
with the education track that they offer, plus all the amazing technology that's brought to that show. So yeah, we do attend that. We attend our local MANTS here in the Mid-Atlantic, the Mid-Atlantic Nurserymen's Trade Show.
Yeah.
But that's just like on the production end. We're members of IPPS, right? We're going to be at Joe, our head grower, is going to be doing a presentation at IPPS this year in Columbus.
Nice.
So yeah, it's through those networks, and then for the like on the native plant end, let me see, I wrote down a few things. We were part of, we do the Perennial Plant Association, PPA, and
Sure.
which is their their regional track or their national track has actually in the last couple of years has been focused on growing. So I think they've really kind of as a group are kind of bringing the grower back into the conversation with PPA, which is
Hmm.
I think it's fantastic. And then a lot of the regional um, meetings that they have in the wintertime also have high design element, but also a decent amount of growing conversation.
Okay.
Mm. There's a organization called Ecological Landscape Alliance, the
Yeah.
ELA. Right. We're very active in that, members, and attend all of their conferences again, just to keep our as like it's easy to be a grower and just kind of like stay in your greenhouse, stay in your lane, but it's always important to hear what other successes and projects that are out there, and
Yeah.
how plants are being used, what's working and what's not working. So that's kind of where how we feel that out, and be a part and just stay abreast to the trends and all the things.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put in a personal plug. I'm going to guess that you guys are using biocontrols at your facility.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay. We have a conference that's going on its 10th year now called our Biosolutions Conference.
Okay.
It takes place, where are we at this year? I think we're in, I want to say Fresno, but don't quote me on that because I'd have to look it up myself.
Yeah.
But it's essentially it's a 2-day conference in late February,
Okay.
and the focus is on biological controls, biosolutions, biostimulants,
Love it.
and we look at it from the whole specialty crop segment. So we've got some general tracks that whether you're an outdoor fruit and vegetable grower or a protected environment grower, that the topics are going to be geared towards everybody there, and then we have some breakout tracks specifically for some of those market segments. So I just, putting in a plug for that if something
I
that
love
your
it.
growing team would be interested in.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, we partnered up with Copert for all of our BCAs this last year, and it's been fantastic. I mean, we're really, we've always had to be as a native plant grower, we can't use a lot of systemics and some really good chemistry out there because
Yeah.
obviously our plants are meant to be eaten.
Mhm.
So we don't want to do, I mean, we want to produce great plants, but we also can't do damage as we're putting them out into the marketplace.
Right.
So yeah, no, the BCAs, we work a lot with Bioworks as well. So we're using their trichoderma. I'm also using the Aptigo trichoderma from C Pro. So we have all three strains in our soil.
Okay.
Lallemand has been fantastic. They were neighbors of ours at Manson, and we can it's great to be able to call these our reps, knowing that number one, they used to be growers,
Yeah.
or number two, they're true scientists, and they're giving us their best information, and we're giving them feedback. So it's a great exchange, that we have with all the reps that, of the ones we're using.
Okay.
And then of course GGS Pro, with
Yeah.
Griffin is a great resource too. It's always fun to, they're always like, what are you guys growing over there? Well, we have 200 different species of perennials. We can't use this or this, but we're using
Yeah.
them. We're like, what are you using? So it's fun to like be able to give them information as well, that of successes we've had and failures as well.
Okay. One thing I was going to ask, and this wasn't part of my initial list here, but I was thinking about as you were talking. So you've got, a couple of I'll say diverse, customer bases. You've got the IGC side, and then you've got the municipality side. More for this time of year, it sounds like. How do those conversations differ when you're talking about what their needs are going to be, and then how, as a grower, you're going to try and address what they're looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. It really comes down to, it's funny because I'm in the new cohort of the Eagle class this year,
Okay.
with Charlie Hall. So
Yeah.
I'm learning all these great terms like value proposition, and it's very different. Each customer brings a different set of needs and wants. So, the re-wholesalers that we're sending to, we're essentially contract growing for these re-wholesalers, like whether it be like a Centerton or Cabanos or whoever it might be that might be finishing these plants for IGC.
Yeah.
And, that conversation is number one, here's our schedule. Can you do it? Do you have the seed? And it's all about transparency with them, right? It's like, okay, we're going to do this, 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 and this, and we're going to do it when we said we're going to do it.
Right.
Versus, the municipality folks, it's really about having availability for them, so there's a lot of, I would say, you can kind of like forecast the popular plants or the ones you think are going to be needed, and just kind of, speculatively grow them, make sure you have the availability, and then, provide it for them. So,
Right.
it's an interesting one too, where, some people want you to sharpen your pencil pretty hard, and those are usually the regulatory driven guys that are doing stormwater. Whereas, folks that are involved with some of the bigger, we had a great project last year that we grew for a state park in New York.
Okay.
And, that was fantastic. I mean, there was nothing about sharpening pencils. Like, hey, these are the plants we want, and
Nice.
you guys have them, and we know they're going to be, local genotype. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Each customer brings their own set of needs for sure, for sure.
There's another thing that I want to kind of do a callback to. This was from when we talked earlier in the year. One of the things that really struck me was, you mentioned it as you communicate with some other growers in the industry who've been around for a while. And what
Mhm.
was really interesting to me was you made a point that, okay, you're learning from a company like a North Creek Nurseries, for example, and then the years of experience that they have. But then also there might be something that you guys learn from that you can then share with them. And I want
Yep.
to kind of ask about that mutual relationship between, a bigger or a longer standing company versus somebody who's newer to the industry. There's certainly, that cross education that can happen there.
Yeah. It's a two-way street with a lot of these folks, and I love it. I mean, it's one of the parts of the industry that, one of the reasons in this marketplace that I absolutely love.
Hmm.
So yeah, folks like, Steve at North Creek and Tim McGinty, we have given information back and forth to each other over and over again, whether it was germination protocols or, hey, I'm growing this a Packer Aria from seed, and you guys are growing them from division. Why are they different? So we're constantly trading information back and forth.
Yeah.
You got North Creek. I'm great friends with James Brown down at New Moon Nursery. We share seed back and forth together, and buy each other's plants when we're missing
Yeah.
out on things. And even the folks at Pinelands Nursery down in South Jersey,
Hmm.
probably one of the first native plant growers for restoration, specifically wetland plants. Tom, he's the second generation takeover now at Pinelands. Tom and his brother Steve, and those guys as well. I mean, it's just an ongoing, hey, I learned this. You should try this. You can speed this up because with the demand in the market, right, there's just not enough of us growers out there making these plants available.
Sure.
So in my personally, my feeling, we are kind earth growers, is let's supply the market. And it doesn't have to be all mine. I mean, we only have, like I said, we're just over half acre production.
Hmm.
I can't do it all, but if I can help someone else do it, let's get these plants out there, which creates more demand, which then allows us all to scale, in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So at the beginning of the conversation, you talked about the passion that you developed early
Mhm.
on for this market. And you alluded to this, but along with that passion also comes the importance of being, financially sustainable, financially profitable. So how do you kind of put those two together
Yeah.
to, have that, you can continue to follow this passion that you have, but then also make sure that as a company, you're staying sustainable over the long term?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And a lot of things that if you look at native plants, right, and its trajectory, it was interesting to walk around the Mant show floor this year and have, 75 or 80 companies out there with a native plant sign, right? And
Hmm.
we have native plants. We're like, okay, what do you have? Like, do you have whatever cultivar? You might just grow white pines, you know what I mean? That might be what you do. And like, of course, white pines are native. So you can put that tag on there. One of the things that I don't have, I think about, and I've talked about with other growers of purely natives, it's like, what will ultimately greenwash us will be as if the native plant message gets diluted,
Hmm.
right? And in being able to control that message, not so much control the message, but just get the right information out there so everyone's on the same page and educated about it. A lot of this is about education as well.
Yeah.
And as long as they're educated about it, then this sector of the market will be allowed to continue to grow. Um, it is basic business stuff as far as finance and everything. We are very fortunate that we are a tight small group of people,
Hmm.
so that immediately puts us all accountable to each other as far as expenditures and things like that. And we have a pretty strict budget that we kind of operate in so that we can continue to grow.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think to answer that question in a roundabout way, it's to be a sustainable part of this industry in just growing native plants, because it's only that big, is really to make sure our messaging and our plant material is of the highest quality and of truth,
Okay.
if that
Okay.
makes sense.
Yeah. I would imagine too, just being part of Charlie Hall's Eagle program is going to be a big part of that as well.
It's fantastic. I mean, it's so eye-opening. I mean, we're probably the smallest company, micro enterprise that's ever gone through that program, and I'm sitting at the table with Ryan and Dan McEhaney, from Bailey's and James Saunders, and it's great. I mean, that just the conversations back and forth, and they're, ironically enough, I mean, I am the only one that started my own business in that
Mhm.
program. So it's
Wow.
it's fun. It's a fun exchange, but back and forth between, the third generation takeover and a brand new business.
Yeah.
So it's yeah, there's a lot to be learned and gained from that. And again, it opens up that sharing opportunity again. There's things that we're sharing back and forth, and they're asking me like, how did you do that? So it's fun. It's fun.
As you guys, look to make any changes down the road here, again, from the smaller company mindset, how do you make the decision in terms of, which projects that you might look up pursue, which innovations on the technology side you might want to look at? How does that conversation go?
Yeah, that's mostly based on I look at it first because we're very human centric. Like we have everything's by hand here. So I look at it from how do I save people's how do I help them become more efficient, but then how do I save them the mundane labor, over and over again. So
Sure.
some of the as a small company, like one of the things, the best thing I think we did this past year was get a soil batch mixer so
Okay.
we can do all of our, trichoderma incorporation and we're whatever we're putting into that soil this way it feeds our hopper and then it puts out fills our flats. I mean, it was the simplest thing that I did, but prior to that we were mixing in the back of the hopper. So
Mm.
everything that we decide to do from a technology standpoint and labor savings is based on saving human labor,
Okay.
not so much replacing human labor but just making the job more enjoyable.
Yeah.
um, other things that are simple things that are not even new technology, but just like, doing bottom heat as opposed to, forced air, irrigation systems. It's yeah, it's just about saving labor, outside of that, we have our facility is kind of old. It was built in 85 and it was originally a bedding facility,
Okay.
and I believe Lloyd Traven was here for a little bit of time
Mhm.
when he began Peachtree, and then after that it was an orchid Parkside Orchids, and it
Oh,
was yeah it was the Parkside Orchids for I think they started in 1991 and they finally sold in 2008, 2009.
Okay.
So, yeah, so when we moved in here, it was outfitted for orchids. So, and because we started bootstrapping, I didn't think to set myself up long term, like say even for an Argus system. You know what I mean? I was just
Right.
like, let's just look at this greenhouse right now, when then we'll fix this greenhouse next year and this greenhouse the year after that. So it's been a very I played a long game, so it's been a very steady and steady expansion. But
Oh, I'm sure that's the best approach to take, I would think, because I mean, if it hits you, then that you have to make all these changes. If you're trying to do it at the very beginning, I'm sure you're just going to get bogged down with
oh yeah,
way too much, and you're not going to get past that first hurdle, I would think.
absolutely. And then also use all of your energy and resources, trying to create something that you don't have a market for yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah.
You mentioned labor for sex, so I mean, are you able to recruit locally for your team then, or
Yeah, we're almost 100% local.
okay,
I don't think anyone drives more than maybe 10 miles to get to work. Yeah, we're in an interesting area. I don't know, have you ever been up to visit Peachtree before?
I have not. It's on my radar. I
Yeah.
should have been there by now, but not yet.
Well, if you ever do, we share the country block.
Okay,
They're literally on the other side of the block from us.
all right.
Yeah, it's an interesting area. Like I refrain from calling it rural, but it is certainly rural and suburban at the same time. Like we're an
Mhm.
hour from New York, an hour from Philly, and Upper Bucks County. Yeah, there's a decent pool of people up here that um, share a similar purpose or vibe, if you will.
Yeah,
Like you put kind earth growers out there, and then like people they've just come out of the woodworks. We've only ever advertised I think 3 times on local Craigslist or social
okay,
media, and that's usually how we found everybody.
good,
And a lot of word of mouth. So
good. That's
I,
awesome.
yeah, it's fun because most of the folks that walk through the door kind of have an idea of they have number one, they have an idea of what we're doing, right? They grow native plants, they have this cool name, and they've got this big meadow out front. And so they come here with that already instilled in their value, right? We're
Yeah,
here to grow something that's gonna do good for the environment, and so yeah, that's who we've attracted and that's who we've ran with.
awesome, awesome.
Mhm.
So, I mean, as you look ahead, is there anything new that's in the works at Kind Earth Growers right now, that you guys are looking at as you plan for next year and the years beyond?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So this year, in February, we took on an additional 70, we increased our space by 75%,
Okay.
through a lease opportunity that came out.
Yeah.
It was fantastic. It's a mile from my house. It's an additional, they're two fantastic greenhouses. So
Right.
that was pretty big for us this year. As we move forward, another increase in space would probably be in the works. It's not going to be for 25,
Right.
but if I look to 26, 27, and as the market continues to grow, and if the economy does stay, stable, yeah, certainly we would look to do some kind of expansion and build. We do have 3 acres here that I've been actively restoring. It's an old hayfield,
Okay.
and we've been restoring it to a warm season grass meadow.
Hmm.
Grasslands are fantastic habitats, for carbon sequestration and just bird and insect life.
Yeah.
So it's kind of I'm proud of it. We burned it this year with the fire company and all, but that's where we would build. So that's one of those catch 22s for me, where it's like, do I grow just for the sake of growing, and expanding and building, or do I just stay true in the focus of like I created this habitat, so
Yeah.
that's at odds with that is constantly at odds in my heart.
I can imagine. Yeah, that's a tough decision to have to make. Yeah.
It is, I don't, I'm more of a fan of like, is the infrastructure there? Is someone moving out of it? Can I just move into it? Would be kind of where my head would be as opposed
Oh,
to
yeah.
breaking new ground,
Yeah. Absolutely. I
it,
can certainly
it
understand that.
yeah, but we're capitalists, so
Understand.
yeah.
So I think one of the last questions I have is just as you look ahead, um, what are you most excited to when it comes to the future, not just of Kind Earth, but also of the
Mhm.
floriculture industry as a whole?
Yeah, we gained so many new gardeners during the pandemic, and I'm really excited to know that as they all came into the marketplace, I would love to see them continue to be, cared for and grown and remain strong in horticulture. Like it's At Del Val, where I went to school, like that whole department is going downhill. They're not getting the enrollment in it anymore. They had to consolidate all the different avenues,
Mm,
whether it's floriculture, landscape, contracting, and design,
yeah,
and horticulture, and fruits and veg. They combined it all. So, I would love to see horticulture be a reason to get outside and reconnect. I'm loving some of the new trends of, you know, people actually not using their phone all the time, especially kids, like the newest generation,
right.
like, oh, let's just take time off of that. Let's go do something else. So I see horticulture in a very keen position to be able to grab their attention because, at the end of the day, if we can, as a big industry, as the industry, if we can make this like a career focused vocation, trade, passion, can we grow it so that people believe that this is something they can make a living doing as opposed to looking at it as like, you know, migrant labor, whatever it might be, like
Right.
low hanging fruit. Like there's so much professionalism within this industry that is evident, that cultivate at, and talking to growers and seeing their excitement that, I'd love to raise that bottom up, and like
Yeah.
really create something that people can look at for a lifetime.
Well, and I'm hoping, in speaking of Cultivate, there was a panel discussion there. We actually did a cover story on it earlier this year, where we talked about what's happening with enrollment trends in horticulture programs across the country, and it seems like things are moving in the right direction now.
Mhm.
Especially coming out of the pandemic, just this renewed interest in gardening, and I think that comes there's a few different angles that these universities are coming at it from. Some of it is the more traditional horticulture and floriculture, but then also seeing the emergence of segments like controlled environment agriculture and maybe getting somebody into the door through that market segment and then showing them all the different options that are available. And
Yep.
I love just on a personal level, I love what a group like Seed Your Future is doing, where if you go to their careers page and it just shows you the literally hundreds
Yep.
of jobs that are available in this industry, some of which you don't have to see or touch a plant at all, which is
Right.
just amazing. Yeah.
Right. Right. No, it's true. And even looking at some of the amazing technology, like I had a friend that was at North Creek. You probably know him, Gordon Rowe.
Yeah.
He's at UNU now. It was just spending time with him and talking about all the AI possibilities that they're putting out there for the industry. I mean, there's some cool stuff happening. It really is.
Thanks for joining us. You can learn more at greenhousegrower.com. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen, and please leave us a rating as it helps other podcast listeners find the show.